Hello learners, let us start with our endocrinology blackboard series. Yes, this endocrinology is always an inquisitive topic to learn and understand so far in our medical science. So let us dive deep with each and every topic of endocrinology in our blackboard series. So today we are going to discuss regarding one of the important hormone of endocrinology, that is oxytocin. So here in this video we are going to discuss regarding the source of oxytocin, where it is getting originated, and then regarding the chemistry and half-life of oxytocin, how much long it will be retaining in blood, and then regarding its functions or actions over the human body in case of both male and female. So these were the topics to be discussed here. So let us dive deep into the topic. So this one is hypothalamus, which is situated above the pituitary gland, and then this is hypothalamo-hypophyseal stalk, and this is our anterior pituitary, and this is our posterior pituitary gland. So here oxytocin is mainly secreted by the nucleus of hypothalamus, that is paraventricular nuclei and supraoptic nuclei of hypothalamus. Both will be secreting the oxytocin, and from there the oxytocin will be reaching the posterior pituitary, and here the oxytocin would be stored in the nerve endings of posterior pituitary. So whenever there is any strong stimuli hitting the paraventricular nuclei and supraoptic nuclei of hypothalamus, the stimulus will be passed on to the posterior pituitary, and from there oxytocin will be released from the nerve endings and it will be released into the blood. So this is regarding how the oxytocin is released into the blood and where it is getting originated. And now moving on towards the chemistry and half-life of oxytocin. So here basically oxytocin is a polypeptide hormone, and this polypeptide, that is proteins, were completely made up of 9 different amino acids, and the half-life of oxytocin is 6 minutes. So this is all regarding the chemistry and half-life of oxytocin. So now moving on towards the action of oxytocin on human body, which is an interesting topic of discussion. Here in case of female, oxytocin mainly acts over the mammary glands, and here in case of uterus it have two different roles depending upon the state of uterus. In case of pregnant uterus it will be of different, and in case of non-pregnant uterus the action will be of different. And as I had mentioned that it helps in reproduction process, yes, in case of male it helps during ejaculation. I will explain it later regarding how it is acting. So here first regarding the action of oxytocin over mammary glands, this was clearly explained in our previous video regarding the milk ejection reflex. I will place the link above. So if you have any doubt regarding it, kindly check it. So in order to understand the action of oxytocin on the pregnant uterus, we should know at which phase the oxytocin levels will be very high. Let's see. So during pregnancy, what happens? We always have the increased levels of estrogen and progesterone. So because of the increased levels of estrogen and progesterone, there will be no oxytocin at all. And during the end of pregnancy, there will be eventual fall of estrogen and progesterone that everyone might be knowing, and because of that there will be increased level of oxytocin. So what this oxytocin is doing at the end of pregnancy? So mainly it is helping in the cervical dilatation and expulsion of fetus, that is mainly during the second stage of labor. So now let's see how the mechanism is exactly happening. So this is our cervical part. Here is vagina. Here is uterus. And here comes the fallopian tube. So here in case of wall of uterus there will be more stretch receptors presenting, which were very sensitive to oxytocin. So during labor, what happens? There will be cervical dilatation. So only if the cervix is getting dilated, baby can be expelled out of the uterus. So this is the basic mechanism. So what happens here during the labor? As usual, cervical dilatation happens and expulsion of fetus happens. So because of that, the stretch reflex would be stimulated, and because of the stimulation, this stimuli will be passed on through the somatic afferent nerve towards the hypothalamus. So here in case of hypothalamus, we have two different nucleus which secretes the oxytocin. Those were paraventricular nuclei and supraoptic nuclei. So they receive the stimuli and they start secreting it, and the secreted oxytocin would be sent to the posterior pituitary nerve endings, and from there the oxytocin is released into the blood. And here what happens? This oxytocin will be going directly towards the uterus, resulting in the contraction of uterus and expulsion of fetus. So this helps in the second stage and third stage of labor. So this is how oxytocin acts during the pregnancy state of uterus. So this is one of the best example for positive feedback mechanism. So here what happens? Depending upon the amount of stimuli, there will be increase in oxytocin secretion. So this is leading to this positive feedback mechanism. So now regarding the action of oxytocin on the non-pregnant state of uterus. So what happens during the sexual intercourse? There will be receptor stimulation from the vagina, and these stretch stimulation will be passed on through the somatic afferent nerve towards the hypothalamus, and there in hypothalamus both the nucleus, that is paraventricular nuclei and supraoptic nuclei, starts secreting the oxytocin, and from there as usual it reaches the posterior pituitary, and finally from posterior pituitary it is released into the blood. And what happens? From blood it reaches the uterus, and here it creates a special type of movement, that is anti-peristaltic movement in uterus, which is against the gravity, so that the sperm which had been released inside the vagina will be anti-peristaltically moved towards the fallopian tube, and this helps in the process of fertilization. And this is how oxytocin is contributing for the reproduction. In case of males also, during sexual intercourse, what happens? This oxytocin helps in smooth muscle contraction of vas deferens, and this helps in release of sperm into the urethra, which helps in the process of reproduction. So this is regarding the action of oxytocin in case of both male and female. And thank you so much. We will continue with some other hormones in the next video.